The highway stretched endlessly through the Arizona desert, heat waves shimmering off the asphalt like liquid mirrors. Marcus Chun gripped the steering wheel of his delivery truck, squinting against the brutal afternoon sun. He'd been driving for 6 hours straight, hauling furniture from Phoenix to Santa Fe, when he saw her. At first, he thought it was a mirage. The desert played tricks on tired eyes. But as he got closer, the image didn't disappear. A woman stood on the side of Highway 60, thumb out in the universal gesture of a hitchhiker. She wore what looked like an evening gown, pale blue and clearly expensive, now covered in dust and torn at the hem. Her dark hair hung in tangles around her shoulders, and even from a distance, Marcus could see she was in trouble. He should have kept driving. Every safety video, every trucker's tale, every ounce of common sense told him not to stop. But something about the way she stood there, defiant yet desperate, like a general who'd lost an army but refused to surrender, made him tap the brakes. The truck pulled onto the shoulder with a hiss of air brakes. Marcus leaned out the window. "You okay, miss?" The woman turned to face him, and Marcus felt his breath catch. She wasn't just any hitchhiker. Her gown, despite the damage, was clearly a designer piece. Her jewelry, what remained of it, sparkled in the harsh sunlight, and her face, streaked with tears and dust, held the kind of refined beauty that belonged in magazines, not on a desert highway. "I need a ride," she said, her voice hoarse. "Please, I'll pay you whatever you want." "I'm not worried about money," Marcus replied, studying her carefully. "But I need to know. Are you running from someone? Is someone going to come after you?" "Yes," she said bluntly, "but not in the way you're thinking. I'm running from myself, from a mistake, from a life I almost chose." Marcus understood that better than she could know. "Where are you headed?" "Anywhere but here." He reached across and opened the passenger door. "I'm going to Santa Fe. That work for you?" She climbed in without another word, clutching a small beaded purse like it was the only thing keeping her tethered to reality. As Marcus pulled back onto the highway, he noticed her hands were shaking. "I'm Marcus," he offered. "Marcus Chun." "Victoria," she whispered. "Victoria Montgomery." The name meant nothing to Marcus, but the way she said it, like she was confessing to a crime, told him everything he needed to know. This was someone running from something big. They drove in silence for 20 miles. Marcus kept stealing glances at his unexpected passenger. She stared straight ahead, her jaw tight, occasionally swiping at tears that escaped despite her obvious efforts to contain them. "There's water in the cooler behind your seat," Marcus said gently, "and some snacks if you're hungry." Victoria didn't respond at first. Then, as if his kindness had broken through whatever barrier she'd erected, she crumpled. Not dramatically, not with loud sobs, but with the quiet devastation of someone whose world had just ended. "I was supposed to get married today," she said, her voice barely audible over the truck's engine. 3 hours ago, I was standing in the bridal suite of the Phoenician resort, surrounded by people who'd flown in from around the world. And then I heard him." Marcus didn't interrupt. Years of driving long hauls had taught him that sometimes people just needed to talk, and the best thing you could do was listen. His best man was congratulating him, Victoria continued, her hands twisting the fabric of her ruined gown, saying how lucky Trevor was, marrying into the Montgomery fortune. And Trevor laughed. He said, her voice broke. He said marrying me was the smart play, that I wasn't his type physically, but the Montgomery Hotels chain was worth a few years of pretending. Marcus felt anger rise in his chest. "What did you do?" "I walked out, grabbed my purse, walked past 300 guests, straight through the lobby and kept walking. I walked for miles before I even realized where I was. And then I just kept walking until you stopped." "Good," Marcus said firmly. "Better to walk out than to walk down that aisle to someone who doesn't deserve you." Victoria looked at him for the first time since getting in the truck. You don't even know me. I know enough. I know you had the courage to walk away from something that wasn't right, even when it was probably the hardest thing you've ever done. That takes strength. As the miles rolled by, Victoria slowly began to relax. Marcus told her about himself, how he'd been driving trucks for 15 years, ever since his restaurant had failed during the 2008 recession. How he had a daughter, Mia, who was 10 and currently staying with his sister in Albuquerque while he worked. Your wife? Victoria asked carefully. She passed, Marcus said quietly. Cancer. 5 years ago. Mia was only 5 when we lost her. I'm so sorry. Me too. But we're managing. Mia's the strongest kid I know. Tougher than me, that's for sure. He smiled softly. She's the reason I work so hard. Trying to save enough to open another restaurant. That's the dream, anyway. Victoria was quiet for a moment. What kind of restaurant? Chinese-American fusion. My grandmother's recipes mixed with modern techniques. My wife and I used to run a small place in Flagstaff. We were actually doing pretty well before everything fell apart. He shrugged. But that's life, right? You make plans, and life laughs. And yet you're still dreaming, Victoria observed. What else are you going to do? Give up? That's not an option when you have a kid depending on you. They stopped at a gas station just outside of Springerville. Marcus filled up while Victoria used the restroom. When she emerged, she'd washed her face and pulled her hair into a messy bun. She looked younger without the makeup, more vulnerable. I called my assistant, she said as they got back on the road. Told her I was safe but needed some time. She's been fielding calls from my father all day. He's not happy. I'd imagine not. Thomas Montgomery doesn't do scandal well. This will be all over the society pages by tomorrow. Hotel heiress abandons groom at altar. They'll have a field day. Marcus glanced at her. You're worried about his reputation or yours? Victoria was quiet for a long moment. I don't know. Maybe both. Maybe neither. I've spent my whole life worrying about what people think. And where did it get me? Almost married to a man who saw me as a business transaction. So stop worrying about it. Just like that. Why not? You already did the hard part. You walked away. Everything else is just noise. They reached Santa Fe just after sunset. Marcus had a delivery to make at a furniture store on the outskirts of town, and Victoria waited in the truck while he unloaded. She watched him work, efficiently, carefully, treating each piece of furniture like it mattered. There was a quiet dignity in the way he moved, a contentment that Victoria realized she'd never felt despite all her advantages. All done, Marcus said, climbing back into the cab. There's a decent motel about 2 miles from here. I can drop you there if you want. Or, he hesitated. Or what? Or you could come meet my daughter. My sister's place is only an hour from here. We could grab dinner, you could get a proper meal, maybe a shower and some real clothes. No pressure, but the offer's there. Victoria should have said no. Should have taken the motel option, called her father, started dealing with the mess she'd created. But something about Marcus's kindness, his uncomplicated decency, made her want to hold onto this strange day a little longer. I'd like that, she said. If you're sure your sister won't mind. Rosa? She's got 5 kids. One more person won't even register. He wasn't wrong. Rosa Chen's home was cheerful chaos. Children ranging from ages 3 to 15 running in all directions. The smell of cooking filling the air. Salsa music playing from somewhere upstairs. Rosa herself was a whirlwind of energy, hugging Marcus hard before turning curious eyes on Victoria. Who's your friend? Hermano? This is Victoria. She's had a rough day. I thought maybe she could join us for dinner. Maybe borrow some clothes? Rosa took one look at Victoria's designer gown and raised an eyebrow, but her smile was warm. Anyone Marcus brings home is welcome. Come on, Victoria. Let's get you into something comfortable. 20 minutes later, Victoria emerged wearing Rosa's jeans and a simple t-shirt, her hair still wet from the shower. She felt more like herself than she had in months. Or maybe, she realized, she felt like someone new entirely. Mia appeared in the doorway, a small girl with Marcus's dark eyes and a serious expression that seemed too old for her face. "You're the lady from Dad's truck." "I am," Victoria said, kneeling to Mia's level. "Your dad was nice enough to give me a ride when I really needed one." "Were you in trouble?" "Yes," Victoria said honestly. "But I'm okay now." Mia considered this. Dad's good at helping people. He helped Mr. Peterson move his whole house last month even though his back hurt. And he always lets Mrs. Rodriguez's kids ride in the truck when her car breaks down. He sounds like a good dad. "He's the best dad," Mia said with fierce certainty. Then, with the bluntness of children, "Your dress was really pretty. Why was it ripped?" "Mia," Marcus said from behind them, "maybe let's not interrogate our guest." "It's okay," Victoria said, standing. "I ripped it because I was running away from something scary. Sometimes you have to run so fast that things get torn." Mia nodded like this made perfect sense. "I get it. When Mom was sick, I used to run really fast so I couldn't hear people being sad." The simple honesty of it nearly broke Victoria's heart. Dinner was loud, messy, and wonderful. Rosa's children fought over who got to sit next to the princess, as they decided Victoria must be given the gown. The food was simple but delicious. Rosa's homemade enchiladas, rice, beans, fresh tortillas. Victoria couldn't remember the last time she'd eaten a meal that wasn't carefully plated by a professional chef or served at a business dinner. "So," Rosa said, passing the salsa, "not to pry, but are you going to tell us why my brother found you hitchhiking on Highway 60 in an evening gown?" "Rosa," Marcus warned. "It's okay," Victoria said. She took a deep breath and told them everything. Trevor, the overheard conversation, her father's expectations, the life she'd been living that never quite felt like hers. The table was silent when she finished. Even the younger children had stopped their usual chaos to listen. "That Trevor guy sounds like a pendejo," Rosa's oldest daughter, Sophia, announced. "Language," Rosa said automatically, but she didn't disagree. "You did the right thing," Rosa said firmly. "Better to be alone than with someone who makes you feel alone." "That's what Dad always says," Mia added. "He says Mom used to tell him that loving someone means making them feel bigger, not smaller." Marcus looked embarrassed but didn't contradict his daughter. After dinner, the children dragged Victoria into their living room to show her their various treasures, drawings, school projects, a rock collection, a half-finished jigsaw puzzle. She found herself laughing, really laughing, for the first time in months. Later, after the younger kids were in bed, Victoria sat on Rosa's back porch with Marcus, listening to the desert night. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for everything, for stopping, for listening, for bringing me here. You didn't have to do any of it." "Sure I did," Marcus replied. "That's what decent people do. They help." "Not in my world," Victoria said with a bitter laugh. "In my world, people help when there's something to gain. Everything's a transaction." "Then maybe you're in the wrong world." Victoria looked at him, this truck driver with kind eyes and calloused hands, who'd given her more genuine kindness in one day than she'd received from her fiancé in 2 years. "Maybe I am," she said softly. Victoria stayed in Albuquerque for 3 days. She told herself she was just hiding out, avoiding the inevitable media storm and her father's disappointment. But the truth was simpler. She was happy. She spent her days helping Rosa with the kids, learning to make tortillas, listening to stories about Marcus and Rosa's childhood. She learned that they'd grown up poor, that their parents had immigrated from China before they were born, that they'd built everything they had through hard work and sacrifice. In the evenings, Marcus would return from his routes, and they'd talk for hours, about everything and nothing, about dreams deferred and hopes held on to. about loss and resilience and finding joy in small moments. "You should come to Flagstaff," Marcus said on the third night. "See the restaurant space I've been looking at. It's nothing fancy, but the location's good, and the rent's reasonable." "I'd like that," Victoria said, surprising herself. The next morning, she finally called her father. Thomas Montgomery's voice was carefully controlled, the way it always was when he was furious. "Victoria, I've had 300 guests asking questions. Trevor's family is threatening lawsuits. The press is having a field day. Where exactly have you been?" "Figuring things out," Victoria said calmly. "Figuring things out? You humiliated yourself, embarrassed me, destroyed a beneficial merger." "It wasn't a merger, Dad. It was supposed to be a marriage. To a man who saw me as a business opportunity." Silence on the other end. Then, quieter. "What are you talking about?" Victoria told him about the overheard conversation. When she finished, her father's fury had transformed into something else. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked, his voice rough. "Because you were so happy about the match. Trevor was everything you wanted for me. Successful, from a good family, ambitious." "I wanted you to be happy," Thomas said quietly. "Everything else was secondary. Your mother—" His voice broke slightly. "Your mother always said I focused too much on business, not enough on what mattered. I thought I was doing right by you." "I know, Dad. Where are you now?" "Albuquerque. With—" She hesitated. "With friends." "And what are you going to do?" Victoria looked out the window at Mia playing in the yard, at Rosa hanging laundry, at the simple, honest life happening all around her. "I'm going to figure out who I am when I'm not trying to be who everyone else wants me to be." 2 months later, Victoria Montgomery stood in the empty space that would become Chen's fusion kitchen. Marcus was measuring the walls for shelving while Mia drew restaurant designs on butcher paper spread across the floor. "The kitchen needs to be here," Victoria said, pointing to her laptop screen where she designed the layout. "And we should put the bar along this wall. It'll create a natural flow." Marcus looked up from his measurements. "You sure about this? It's going to be a lot of work, and there's no guarantee of success." "I'm sure," Victoria said firmly. "I've never been more sure of anything." She'd meant it. After leaving Albuquerque, Victoria had gone to Flagstaff with Marcus and Mia. She'd seen the restaurant space and fallen in love with its possibilities. She'd also fallen in love with the town, with the simpler pace of life, with the idea of building something real instead of maintaining something inherited. Her father, after his initial shock, had been surprisingly supportive. "If you're going to do this," he'd said during one of their long phone conversations, "do it right. Let me invest." "No," Victoria had replied. "This needs to be mine. Something I built, not something that was given to me." But she'd accepted his advice on business planning, his contacts with suppliers, his wisdom earned from decades of building his own empire. And slowly, father and daughter had rebuilt their relationship on more honest ground. The grand opening of Chen's Fusion Kitchen was set for December 15th. The space had been transformed: warm lighting, exposed brick, an open kitchen where diners could watch their meals being prepared. The menu was a perfect blend of Marcus's grandmother's recipes and Victoria's business acumen. Traditional dishes presented in modern ways. "I'm nervous," Marcus admitted the night before opening, as they did final preparations. "Good," Victoria said, squeezing his hand. "If you're not nervous, you don't care enough." Somewhere along the way, between paint samples and menu tastings, between late nights planning and early mornings prepping, something had shifted between them. The careful friendship had deepened into something neither of them had planned but both had quietly welcomed. "Vic," Marcus said. He was the only person who'd ever called her that, and she loved it. "Whatever happens tomorrow, I want you to know, you changed my life. Before I met you, I was just surviving, getting by. You reminded me what it feels like to actually live. You did the same for me, Victoria replied. You showed me that kindness isn't weakness, that simple doesn't mean less, that the best things in life aren't the ones you buy, they're the ones you build. The restaurant was a success. Not immediately, not overnight, but steadily and surely. Word spread about the incredible food, the warm atmosphere, the story of the hotel heiress and the truck driver who'd built something beautiful together. Marcus's cooking gained attention from food critics. Victoria's business sense kept them profitable even during slow seasons. And Mia, now 11, could often be found doing homework at the corner table, occasionally helping bus tables or greet customers. 6 months after opening, Thomas Montgomery came to visit. Victoria had been nervous about her father meeting Marcus in person, but she shouldn't have worried. You took care of my daughter when she needed it most, Thomas said, shaking Marcus's hand firmly. You gave her a safe place to land and the courage to rebuild. I can never repay that. I didn't do it for repayment, Marcus replied simply. I did it because it was right. Thomas studied him for a moment, then smiled. I can see why Victoria chose you. Over dinner, where Thomas insisted on ordering everything on the menu to properly evaluate the investment, father and daughter talked honestly for the first time in years. I was wrong, Thomas admitted, about so many things. I pushed you toward people like Trevor because that's what I knew: business, deals, strategic partnerships. I forgot that your mother didn't marry me because I was a good business decision. She married me because I made her laugh, because I showed up when she needed me, because I saw her, not just the Montgomery name. Dad, let me finish. Marcus reminds me of who I was before I forgot what matters. And watching you here, running this restaurant, actually happy. You remind me of your mother. She'd be so proud of you, Mija. It was the first time Victoria had heard her father use the Spanish endearment, picked up from years of business in the Southwest. It made her cry. A year after Chen's Fusion Kitchen opened, on a quiet Tuesday evening after closing, Marcus asked Victoria to stay behind. I have something to show you, he said, leading her to the empty dining room. He'd set up a single table in the center, with candles and flowers and 2 place settings. Soft music played from the speakers. Marcus, what? Sit, he said gently. Please. He disappeared into the kitchen and returned with 2 plates. Victoria recognized the dish immediately. It was what he'd served her that first night at Rose's house. The enchiladas that had tasted like home and hope and new beginnings. Victoria Montgomery, Marcus said, sitting across from her. A year and a half ago, I picked up a hitchhiker in a torn gown who was running from her life. I thought I was just giving someone a ride. I didn't know I was meeting my future. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. You walked into my life when both of us were broken in different ways. You reminded me that dreams were worth chasing. You gave Mia a mother figure who shows her every day what strength looks like. You built this place with me. Not just the restaurant, but the life around it. He stood up, walked around the table, and knelt beside her chair, pulling out a simple ring. No massive diamond, just a beautiful band with small stones that caught the candlelight. I'm not a wealthy man. I can't offer you penthouses or private jets or society connections. But I can offer you laughter every day, enchiladas whenever you want them, and a love that sees you, really sees you, exactly as you are. Will you marry me? Victoria was full-on crying now, not caring about makeup or dignity or anything except this moment. Yes, she said, pulling him up and kissing him. Yes, absolutely yes. They married 6 months later in a small ceremony at Rose's house, with close friends and family only. Victoria wore a simple sundress. Marcus wore jeans and a button-down shirt. Mia was the flower girl and gave a speech about how she'd known from the first day that Victoria was supposed to be her mom. Thomas Montgomery walked his daughter down the makeshift aisle in Rose's backyard, and when he placed her hand in Marcus's, he said loudly enough for everyone to hear, "You're a good man, Marcus-chan. Take care of my girl." Always, Marcus promised. The reception was a potluck. Everyone brought dishes, and the mismatched plates and casual atmosphere were perfect. There was no ice sculpture, no string quartet, no society photographers. Just people who loved them celebrating something real. "Any regrets?" Marcus asked as they danced to music playing from someone's phone. Victoria thought about the Grandview Hotel, about Trevor, about the life she'd almost chosen. "Not even one," she said. "That day on the highway was the worst day of my life, but it led me here. To you, to Mia, to this life. So no regrets at all." "Good," Marcus said, pulling her closer. "Because you're stuck with us now. Promise?" Victoria asked, laughing through happy tears. "Promise." Chen's fusion kitchen had expanded to 3 locations. Marcus had won several culinary awards. Victoria had been featured in business magazines as an example of someone who'd successfully transitioned from corporate heir to small business owner. But the thing Victoria was most proud of wasn't in any magazine. It was Mia, now 16, who'd just been accepted to culinary school with a full scholarship. It was the community they'd built, the regular customers who'd become friends, the staff who felt like family. It was Marcus, who still made her laugh every single day and still looked at her like she was the most beautiful woman in the world. And it was the life they'd built together. Not perfect, not glamorous, but real and honest and full of love. Sometimes Victoria would drive past the highway where Marcus had picked her up 5 years earlier. She'd think about that day, the fear, the heartbreak, the courage it took to keep walking into the unknown. And she'd thank the universe for sending her a truck driver with kind eyes who'd stopped when he didn't have to, who'd seen her when she'd felt invisible, who'd shown her that sometimes the best things in life happen when your plans fall apart. Because sometimes disaster is just opportunity in disguise. Sometimes the person who saves you is the one you were always meant to find. And sometimes love finds you hitchhiking on a desert highway, running from a life that was never yours, toward a future you couldn't have imagined. The best adventures, Victoria had learned, begin when you have the courage to walk away from what's wrong and toward what's right, even when you don't know what right looks like yet. She'd walked away from a penthouse and found a home. She'd left behind a strategic marriage and found true love. She'd abandoned a life of obligation and discovered a life of purpose. And it all started with a simple question on a desert highway. "You okay, miss?" The answer, Victoria thought now, 5 years and a lifetime later, was finally, truly, yes. She was okay. Better than okay. She was exactly where she was supposed to be. And it had all begun with one brave decision to keep walking, and one kind stranger who stopped to help.